Good morning, ladies. Today for your CGI lesson, you're going to be using page 17 in your packet. Um, Remember, you don't have to rewrite the entire question. Just make sure that you are solving your work in your packet on page 17 for this specific word problem. So suppose you want to buy 3 loaves of bread that cost $1.50 each and a jar of peanut butter that costs $4. A jar of jelly is $2.75, but you don't need any jelly. You have $10. How much money will you have left over? So as I read it again, I want you to think about what the quantities are and what they represent, and if there's any information in the problem that you don't necessarily need. So suppose you want to buy 3 loaves of bread that cost $1.50 each, and a jar of peanut butter that costs $4. A jar of jelly is $2.75, but you don't need any jelly. You have $10. How much money will you have left over? All right, so the first part in that first sentence, suppose you want to buy 3 loaves of bread. So we want 3 loaves of bread. And the cost of those three loaves of bread are going to be $1.50 each. So remember that word each. Then we want to buy a jar of peanut butter, and that jar of peanut butter is going to cost us $4. And then it says a jar of jelly is $2.75, but we don't need any jelly. So think about if we need that information or not. So it's telling us that the jar of jelly costs $2.75, but it's also telling us we don't need the jar of jelly. So we actually don't need any of this information. This is just information that's trying to trick you. And then lastly, we're focusing on our question. Oh, actually, we still have another quantity. So our other quantity that we have is you have $10. So we have $10 total to go to the store and buy our bread and buy our peanut butter. And then how much money we have left over is going to be our answer. So our question said, how much money will you have left over? So think about if we're trying to figure out how much money we have left over, if we go to the store and we have that money in our pocket and then we buy things, is our quantity going to get bigger or is it going to get smaller? So I want you to think if it's going to get bigger, what operations would we use? Or if we think it's going to get smaller, what are our operations that we're going to use? So at this point, you should have some of these quantities written down on your paper, and you should be ready to start that solving section. So go ahead and pause your video, and then once you are finished, you can unpause and we'll check it together. All right, so at this point, you should have already solved this problem. Up on my paper, I have my quantities listed. So I have 3, which represents the total loaves of bread that we're purchasing. $1.50, which represents the total cost of 1 loaf of bread. $4, which I added a decimal and 2 zeros to, so it's easier to work with. And a total of 1 jar of peanut butter. And then I have $10, which is the total money that we're going to the store with. So we have a total of $10. And our question is, after shopping, so after we buy our loaves of bread and our peanut butter, how much money are we going to have left? So the first thing that we want to figure out, so it said that we're buying 3 loaves of bread and that each of those loaves of bread is going to cost $1.50. So we want to figure out how much money we're actually spending on the loaves of bread. So looking at these 2 parts, we have money and we have bread. So we have 2 different units, which means that we can't add or subtract them. And then we want to figure out, are we trying to make our quantity get larger or are we trying to make it get smaller? So we have multiplication and division left. And are we trying to take our $1.50 and break it into 3 equal parts? Or are we trying to take parts, or taking our 3 loaves of bread and multiplying it to create a bigger quantity? So for this one, because each loaf of bread is $1.50 and we have 3 of them, That means we want to multiply. So we're going to take our $1.50 and multiply that by our 3 loaves of bread. And because we have just a single digit number, stacking them works fine. You don't have to do lattice. 3 times 0 is 0. 3 times 5 is 15. 3 times 1 is 3, plus 1 is 4. And then when we're multiplying decimals, we don't want to just bring it straight down. We want to make sure we figure out how many decimal places we have. So in this first number, we have 2, and we have 0 and 3, which means we need to move our decimal a total of 2 times. So our loaves of bread cost us $4.50. And then we want to make sure we're checking this work by dividing. So taking that $4.50 and dividing it into 3 parts to see if it equals $1.50. Remembering we want to bring up that decimal into our quotient. 3 goes into 4 one time. We multiply and get 3. 4 minus 3 is 1. Bring down your 5. 3 goes into 15 5 times. 3 times 5 is 15. We subtract. And we only have zeros left, so we bring that 0 up. And this is correct. So now we have $4, which is the total cost of 1 jar of peanut butter. Okay, so we have our total for how much we spent on the bread, but now we need to figure out, now we're buying peanut butter and we want to add that into our quantity that we already have. So we have our bread, and now this is going to be our peanut butter that we're buying. 0, 5 plus 0 is 5, 4 plus 4 is 8. So as of right now, we're spending a total of $8.50. But our question doesn't want to know how much money we're spending. It wants to know after we spend how much money of that $10 are we going to have left. So if we're trying to figure out how much we have left, we're trying to find the difference between the two dollar amounts. And because we have dollars for how much we spent and dollars for how much money we have, we can subtract those two because they have the same unit. We're going to take our $10 because that's the biggest quantity. So we want to start with $10 and subtract $8.50. And remember, when we're adding or subtracting decimal numbers, you want to line up your decimals. So that 8 needs to go underneath this 0 so that your decimal place values can go in the correct spot as well. 0 minus 0 is 0. We're going to go all the way over to the 1 and borrow from it. This becomes a 9. This becomes a 10. 10 minus 5 is 5. 9 minus 8 is 1. And when you're adding or subtracting decimals, you want to bring your decimals straight down. So now what I can do is I can turn this around and do $1.50 plus $8.50 to see if I get 10 to check my work. Five plus 5 is 10. I'm going to carry that 1, bring down your decimal, 8, 9, 10. And those two quantities are the same, so that is correct. So after shopping, how much money we have left is $1.50. So our answer is $1.50. And then our number sentence is going to be what we did first, but we also want to remember that we're taking $10 and subtracting from that. So we want to start with that $10 and subtract. But then we also want to put some things in parentheses. So I'm going to do brackets and parentheses. So the $1.50 times 3. And then what we did to that is we added the $4 for that peanut butter. So right now we know we have to do $1.50 times 3 first. Then we're going to add the $4. Then we're going to take our entire answer and subtract it from $10. Don't forget to put your dollar signs. And then this is going to equal $1.50. So at this point, make sure that you're going back, you're checking your work, rewinding the video if you need to go back and look at any of the strategies that we used or the steps that we did. And make sure that your work is recorded.